The first men to conquer the advertising frontier strove to write factual and simple ads. However, over time, ad men, as they are known, increasingly chose a more indirect and psychological approach. We shall learn about that later, as well as many other methods, as we now go on a historical journey through the past techniques in the advertisement world. The ideas presented in this report stem from The Rise of American Advertising, written by Jackson Lear in 1983. My name is Adeline Tismet, and I will be covering this report. At the turn of the century, American corporations began to advertise brand name products to a national market. And over the subsequent 50 years, ad men started to move into luxurious headquarters who were selling brand name products like Camel cigarettes. These advertisements could be seen painted on brick walls, billboards, subway cars, newspapers, and magazines. Ad men used the fact that they were telling the truth about their product to persuade people into buying their product.
We can see that in the early 1900s, the trade press shifted its orientation from product to potential buyer. Ad men attempted to put themselves in the shoes of the buyer and figure out their yearnings and anxieties. Stemming from this idea, ad men thought adults were merely just grown-up children. First seen in 1897, some ad men pointed out that adults are tired and bored from too much argument, diagrams, and common sense. So brevity and silliness were key in creating an effective ad.
Another strategy we can see is the strategy of personal appeal. Rather than trying to appeal to the diversity in the mass market, they took on the imagine your face here technique. The psychology technique proved very popular, and in 1903, when Walter Dill Scott published The Psychology of Advertising, ad men flocked to lectures and wondered why they could answer the question of, can you sell goods to the unconscious mind? Ad men believed that psychology lay in the area of suggestion, so they began attempting the use of suggestion in their ads.
By the early 20th century, slogans, jingles, and trademarks were familiar sights, all designed to catch the eye of the busy and distracted public. These ads had basically no information and were usually associated with pretty girls and perfect families. Basically, ads turned into salesmanship in print.
The pause that refreshes.
As ads become more fantastic and surreal during the 1910s and 1920s, many tried to cling to their 19th century notions of reality, truth, and meaning. The no frills technique, claiming that if your ad was too pretty and people read it purely for enjoyment, then the reader wouldn't be serious about buying the product. However, once a name brand was recognized as quality, advertisements that boasted their great excellence proved inadequate. There was a great difficulty in deciphering all the brands, so that beer had to seem special, or bread had to be more than bread. Ad men started to call advertisements persuasive art, and in 1910, Cloudroy Chapman, a legal constitute to ad agencies, argued that mental images, not rational arguments, moved the prospective buyer to buy. So we must turn emotion into money.
The Chalmers Motor Company revived lagging sales in 1910 by switching from reason why advertising techniques to word painting and auto's seductive joys. The strategy won praise in the trade press, and by 1920, the factual auto advertisements had virtually disappeared.
Everyday life is pretty dull, so I believe that the typical American compensated for the routine of today by the vision of what his life is to be tomorrow. Here's the vision of getting ahead. Everything he buys comes as a partial fulfillment of that vision. My buddy Paul Nystrom has similar ideas and notes the importance of boredom, and that it marks an importance because it leads in a change of personality. With the decline of religious faith, Nystrom believed that tendency to challenge the purpose of life itself grew and made superficial consumer choices seem all the more important.
Others slightly disagreed with his idea and believed that it created an essence of individuality. Advertising made choice possible, making the consumer feel educated. In 1925, we can see the public appealing to intelligence rather than emotion when contemplating advertisements. In one instance, a corset promised an ideal posture that reflects good breeding and class distinction.
People unacquainted with psychology assume that men have the power to say yes or no to an advertisement. The assumption is only partly correct. A man has the power to decide in the first stage of the game, not in the last. If the printed word can seize his attention, hold him chained, drive him from his mind all other thoughts except the one, buy this, every opposing idea, perception, feeling, instinct, and disposition have been driven out or smothered to death. He cannot say no. His will is dead.
Along with attempting notions of psychology, the ad men were getting very creative and tended to now attempt to portray fantastic ideas around the product. Ad men believed that what made an effective ad was not the product but the symbolic context that surrounded it. Elbert Hubbard claims, "You do not sell a man the tea, but the magic spell that which is brewed nowhere else but in this pot."
Though ad men preferred to use less words and description, there was a calling for imagination. Ad writers were advised to pick out the vital words and form them into sentences that possess the breath of life. This ultimate need for some sparkle in the ads led to some using cartoons or avant-garde artistic work. Midway through the 1920s, many brands saw great success in cartooning and chose to enlist cartoonists to create brand trademarks. In the 1930s, the rise of colored magazines allowed advertising artists to expand their opportunities and abilities. In 1922, there was once a Goodyear tire ad showing an earth with a Goodyear tire encircling it with the slogan, "Goodyear means good wear." Though this is a more recent advertisement, it has the same message. And that message, critics believed, had strength, beauty, and dignity.
By 1936, the customer was clearly not being sold a cigarette, but more a way of life, full of leisure, surrounded by friends.
By the late 1920s, American advertising moved into advertising on television, which we still use today as a major source of advertising. The most powerful aspect of TV advertising the ad men found was the possibility for repetition, for repetition, for repetition, for repetition. The most powerful device of suggestion. Later, particularly during the 1960s, advertising began to move beyond the world of commerce and into such areas as government and politics. Now it seems far too commonplace and indeed almost impossible for a politician to succeed without the help of media consultants.
Advertising is the business of manufacturing illusions. It remains so because the ad men of today, like those of the past, have experienced the same confusions felt by other members of the 20th century American society.
These confusions stem from a contradiction between our democratic ideology, with its emphasis upon individual choice and freedom of expression, and an economic arrangement which encourages and indeed depends upon conformity and predictability among both producers and consumers.
We live in a society that traditionally values spontaneity, risk, and adventure. Yet today, most Americans inhabit an urban or suburban world hemmed in by routine. Adventure has become more of a commodity, and room for adventure is limited.
Many ad men are, after all, creative and original thinkers, artists, photographers, and poets. They have to convince millions of consumers that they would be happier, even better humans if they used certain products. Given the conditions of their work and of ordinary life, it is not really surprising that generations of advertising men have aimed to transform a prosaic world of commodities into a magical place of escape, illusion, and fantasy. Ephemeral images, empire.